Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Friday Night Live. Welcome to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban. It is Friday, the 25th of June, 2021. And of course, it is corresponding to the 15th of Dhul Qa'dah, 1442. We're in the 11th month of the Islamic calendar. For all of you who follow the Islamic calendar, inshallah. And as usual, we are broadcasting live. We are broadcasting live across Luton on 105.1 FM. Assalamu alaikum to all our listeners in Luton. Also, assalamu alaikum to our partner stations, our listeners on our partner stations in Sheffield, Link FM. Assalamu alaikum, listeners in Sheffield. Assalamu alaikum also to our listeners in Peterborough, Derby, Nottingham. I pray that you are well wherever you are. And I also pray that you've got a bit of sunshine just like we have here in Luton. SubhanAllah, what happened to the weather all of a sudden? Thank God we have seen a bit of sunshine here in the UK. Anyway, for our listeners elsewhere across the UK, you can tune in to us via the Inspire FM app, via the Inspire FM website. You can also be following us, listening to us, and in fact watching us on Facebook, on YouTube. So plenty of ways to tune in. Do remember to join tonight's conversation. Some very interesting topics, mashallah. The producers have put some fantastic panelists together for tonight's show. Hopefully I can ask some probing questions to our fantastic panelists that we've got lined up tonight. Do remember to join in tonight's conversation, discussion. I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions. Leave us your comments, and do remember to like us on any of the social media platforms that you choose to listen into us. 01582481822, 01582481822, 07779 That is the number if you want to SMS or WhatsApp, 07779 And of course, we are still broadcasting from our home studios, so we do apologize if there is a bit of lag, or if there's a bit of, if we have any technical issues, do please bear with us. Anyway, what have I got lined up this evening, or what has the team got lined up for you? We're going to be discussing Pakistan. We're going to go straight into Pakistan. A very, very interesting conversation around Pakistan. Pakistan at the moment's been making headlines. I don't know if any of you are actually listening to the interview of Imran Khan recently, on why he's outspoken against Islamophobia in the West, but silent about the genocide of Muslim Uyghurs in Western China, right? Or East Turkmenistan, or it's also referred to as Xinjiang, right, by the Chinese. So that's an interesting contradiction and a contrast. We're going to be discussing that. We're also going to be discussing recently how the Financial Action Task Force decisions to keep Pakistan on the grey list will deepen Islamabad's economic crises, right? Pakistan has also said no to the US to use its bases against Afghanistan. We're going to be finding out what's happening there. And surprise, surprise, 25th of June, 2021, Pakistan secures $1 billion loan from China. So plenty of headlines Pakistan is making. We're going to be discussing with some experts to try to unravel all of this and find out what's going on. How does Pakistan fare? How does Imran Khan fare, right, at the current juncture in time? Those are the questions we're going to be asking. We're also going to be discussing attacks on migrants and human rights defenders in Italy, right? I want to have a wider conversation around human rights and the plight of the migrants globally. We're going to be speaking to Islamic Human Rights Commission and also other experts. Then we're discussing the very Uyghur Muslims that I was referring to earlier, that Imran Khan refused to condemn China with regards to the Uyghur Muslims. There's a national campaign, national solidarity campaign. There's a national solidarity demo for our Muslim brothers and sisters of the Uyghur origin. We're going to be speaking to Dr. Salman Butt, who is spearheading this campaign on behalf of Islam 21C. Last but not least, let's get Luton vaccinated. Let's get Luton vaccinated. That is the clear message coming from Public Health Service Manager and the Luton authorities. I want to know if you've been vaccinated. I want to know if you're going and getting yourself vaccinated, your family vaccinated, and if you're not, what is the reason, right? I think general trend is that people are going to get themselves vaccinated. If you're one of those few who haven't, why not? We need to get you vaccinated, inshallah ta'ala. And if you've got any questions, let me know. 01582 481 822 0779 481 822. That's the lineup, inshallah ta'ala. I want to hear from you, our listeners, right? All right, so I'm already out of breath, man. SubhanAllah, I need to have a sip of water. And after I do that, let's go straight into the conversation. Right, so inshallah, I think we've got some experts lined up. We've got Mr. Yasser Janjua. All right, we've got Mr. Yasser Janjua now. Fantastic! What a background. Started his military career in the 1990s. He's been in the universities in the US, UK, subject matter specialist on security risk, and a senior defense and security analyst. Fantastic. We have got Sayyid Mohsin Abbas, a journalist, political analyst, political justice activist, currently working as an independent documentary producer, TV presenter, and political commentator. We've got some experts, basically, right? So I'm not the expert, but my job is to ask the questions to the experts, right? So experts, I read out a couple of headlines there, that Imran Khan's been obviously under the spotlight with the media with regards to his very clear contrast and almost, he talks about the Western states and the Western hypocrisy of the Western states. But what about the hypocrisy of Mr. Khan? Because he attacks the West when it comes to Islamophobia, but very quiet with China. And he says, I discuss with China behind closed doors. Very interesting, right? We also see today an announcement of Pakistan securing 1 billion loan from China. So that's interesting. We also hear comments of Imran Khan Saab saying no to US bases, right? And of course, we know that the American head director, CIA director, William Burns, flew to Pakistan to conduct talks with the head of the ISI. But we also know Pakistan's been, since 9/11, Pakistan's been working very closely with the Americans. If it hasn't got direct air bases, it's allowed overhead flights, it's given intelligence, right? It's allowed the roads to be used for supplies to go into Afghanistan. So it's a bit of a hypocrisy, but there's a lot happening, right? Let me go to my experts and let's hear from you. What do you make of it? Let me go first to Yasser Saab. Assalamu alaikum, Yasser Saab. Welcome to Friday Night Live. Right, very bad network, Yasser Saab. So I can't hear you at all. Let me go to Sayyid Mohsin Abbas Saab. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid Mohsin Saab.
Walaikum salam. Were we going to deal with Pakistan's economic crisis, or are we going to deal with I'm happy to deal with the Uyghur issue as well.
I've given you a choice of topics, haven't I? I've given you a choice of topics. Pakistan's making headlines for a number of reasons at the moment. Imran Khan's been under the spotlight with regards to this interview, right? We've also seen a $1 billion loan deal coming from China again. We've seen Pakistan remaining on the grey list, right? Number of compliance issues have been raised, right? So let's try to untangle all of that and see what's going on. I'm happy to take the lead on the financial state of affairs, and then let's delve into the political elements too.
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing is a huge change in geopolitics across the world, but very particularly in this region, we're seeing the rise of what's regarded as the Eurasian axis. We're looking at Russia and China as the predominant spearheads within that Eurasian axis. We're looking at a Belt Road initiative, which very much brings in Pakistan into the equation, and China being at the heart of the economic, if you like, new game, if you like, in that region and beyond. Yeah. We're also seeing the Americans saying that they'll gradually pull out of this region, certainly Afghanistan, etc. There are murmurings that they're going to go. Of course, that seems to be all blowing up in everybody's face at the moment with what's going on. So Pakistan is pivotal as a nuclear power, as a country which has a $25 trillion wealth embedded within its soil. Let's not forget that Pakistan has huge resources and is therefore not only attractive economically, it's also attractive in terms of its kind of geopolitical strategic position. And it's obviously going to be at the heart of a tug of war in this increasing China versus America scenario that this century seems to be throwing up. The Russians, who never had a foothold in Pakistan, have also been making huge, if you like, inroads in friendly diplomatic relations, at least with Pakistan, if not outright, if you like, deals as China is. Pakistan's future, arguably, is with China. It's regional neighbor. It's also not to be disconnected from what's going on in the Islamic Republic of Iran, which also has mutual interests. But hitherto, we've seen that Pakistan's loyalties have lain rather with the Americans. US aid has a huge say in what goes on in Pakistan, arguably, and the US itself has huge interests traditionally. Afghanistan, of course, what happens in Afghanistan is hugely important to Pakistan's security interests. We know that the Americans were really trying to get India to, if you like, be the primary player in Afghanistan. That seems to have fallen flat. Pakistan has played a rearguard action, arguably, to keep the Americans and the Indians at bay in Afghanistan. So there are huge changes going on. I'll come on to the economics of it later.
Okay, so fantastic, Sayed Mohsin Saab. That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that expertise on the tug of war between China and America with vis-a-vis Pakistan. So that's interesting. But also I'm going to say, okay, we've been the pawn in the middle for a while now, getting pushed in each of those directions. It's going to be interesting to hear from Yasser Saab. Yasser Saab, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? Right. So I all right. So we're still having connection issues because Yasser Saab's picture is also frozen. So producers, let's try to establish that connection again. Let's test it, make sure it works before we bring Yasser Saab back onto the platform. But let me go back to Sayyid Mohsin Abbas. Fantastic in terms of an overview. You laid out the context very well. I mean, you know, I'm not surprised to hear that commentary because, you know, I've seen that happen for a long time. It seems like Pakistan's getting into both the American bed and the Chinese bed, right? Whoever pays the best amount of money. Sorry to use a bit of a below the belt analogy, but that's what it appears to me like. You know, how long is Pakistan going to? I mean, you described Pakistan in a very positive way, and I'm from Pakistan, and I like Mr. Khan, right? I've always been a Pakistani cricket fan, right? And I'm a big fan of Pakistan itself in terms of its potential, right? So why do we need to, and why is it that we can't, you know, sever the umbilical cord which attaches us either to America or attaches us to China, and then, you know, our foreign policy, domestic policy is connected to these institutions, and we just can't, you know, really become truly an independent Pakistan.
You know, I sympathize with your viewpoint. I mean, obviously, one would like to see sovereign independence. One would like to see a Pakistan which is self-sufficient economically. We would like to see an affluent Pakistan. Unfortunately, over the decades, it's clear that Pakistan's leaderships have consistently veered towards this continuous policy of taking out loans, and this brings the economics into the situation. And the loans have largely come from the IMF. I think something like 22 loans since 1958. Those loans essentially keep Pakistan in debt. The US aid itself is a kind of debt. You've also got consecutive debt with the Saudi Arabians. So actually Pakistan has, in a way, some people...
Dead everywhere. When Imran Khan came to power, right? That was one of his biggest critiques of his predecessors. You know, we've gone around the begging bowl everywhere, and we're a nation of, you know, I don't want to be derogatory, and someone might say I'm being very derogatory to Pakistanis, and I'm not. I'm from Pakistan, but that's what we are. We're just going around and asking everyone for donations and loans. and we continue to do that. So Imran Khan hasn't changed anything when it comes to the political, or the economic, well-being of Pakistan. I don't think so. Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that it's pretty much impossible to turn Pakistan's economic and geopolitical reality overnight. So in deference to Imran Khan, I don't think he was ever going to be able to change the scale of the problem that Pakistan faces overnight. But nonetheless, what we can say is that, for instance, taking the $6 billion debt on, which is supposed to be paid out over, I think, something like 29 months or something, which isn't difficult. But the problem ultimately with that, Pakistan has a huge population and it has an economic turnover. However, the problem lies really in the fact that 35%, I think, of Pakistan's earnings go towards debt service. So those debts which Pakistan takes on end up eating 35% of its revenues. On top of that, I have to add that 16% goes on the defense budget. And clearly, of course, with India breathing down Pakistan's neck, with Afghanistan being used as an encirclement tool, the government and the establishment could argue that 16% spend on defense is absolutely vital for its survival. So, there are factors, and that leaves behind, roughly 40-50% to spend on other things. And there, of course, Pakistan has a huge problem that it faces in terms of taxation, very low taxation returns. It's had huge problems in terms of a bottomless pit in terms of the energy sector. There is an economic black hole there. All of these things, when Pakistan took on yet another IMF loan, and quite frankly, I'm against taking on further debt as a way of getting out of Pakistan's ills. I think the IMF has proven itself over the last 4 decades, at least, to be nothing but really an establishment which increases poverty of poor nations. It increases inequality in countries like Pakistan. It deprives these nations of crucial resources because they allow the corporates and others to move in. They directed poor countries wealth northwards. That's what the IMF has done.
So Sayyid Mohsin Abbas, we're in agreement there. We're in agreement there. IMF, World Bank, right? We're in agreement there. But that's exactly where Imran Khan and his government are going back to, right? I mean, the whole point of this, financial action task force decision is to get in compliance so we can get exactly, more of what we're doing already, which is getting more loans. But let me go back to Yasser Saab. Let's see if you can hear Yasser Saab. Yasser Saab, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Third world country, so my apologies if the internet sometimes is not behaving as it should.
Okay, Yasser, let's get a few comments from you. I don't know whether you've been able to hear us up until now, but I've given let's give you an opportunity to get a few comments in. Your thoughts on Imran Khan's recent interview, the Uyghurs versus the West, and also the current economic plight with regards to another $1 billion loan from China. And last but not least, what about the issue of no to American bases in Pakistan, but we're happy to provide intelligence, airspace, and everything else you want? Bit of a hypocrisy, isn't there?
Right. Now, I mean, that's your point of view, and you're entitled to your point of view. I don't disagree with you. That's called democracy. As far as Imran Khan's interview is concerned, I think this was the best ever speech or an interview coming from the Prime Minister of a country. He's always been forthright, and he's been very straight shooter, and that's what he's done this time. He's told the Americans in no uncertain words, look, we're not going to give you any bases. Absolutely not has become the most trending word or phrase in the last few days. So there's no doubt about it. Imran Khan speaks his heart and mind, and on behalf of the 220 million people in Pakistan. I know the West has been trying to raise a hue and cry about the Uyghurs issue. Look, China, that is an internal matter of China. That territory is not a disputed territory, unlike Kashmir.
That's a bit contradictory, isn't it? I mean, you can't say it's an internal matter for China, but then Imran Khan is talking about Islamophobia in the West. I mean, that's nothing to do with Imran Khan. By the same stretch of argument, right? Well, what's Imran Khan got to do with Islamophobia in the West then?
Right. So the thing is, when you talk about Uyghurs, or you want to talk about it, there is so much happening in the West as well. We don't talk about everything. The question is, Why people? Because it's China. If this was happening in any other country, nobody would be talking about it. Why all of a sudden the West is worried about Uyghurs? What about the Kashmiris? What about the Palestinians? Have we been talking about, has the West been talking about the Palestinians? They've been trying to get their homeland and they're being bombed and nobody's talking about it. Yes, I agree. The Uyghurs is a problem. And Imran Khan also said, yes, we're talking to them behind closed doors. He's not said we're not talking to them. And everybody else is. But what I'm trying to say is, because the world is picking and choosing, because the G7 summit was all talking about Chinese. So it's because China is doing it. Everybody is homed on to it. Nobody's worried about Israel, what they've been doing in the last 2 months in Ramadan and everywhere else. Nobody's talked about Palestine. Nobody's talked about India and Kashmir. I'd like to see some Westerners talking about Palestine and Kashmir as well. Why only Uyghurs? Yes, Uyghurs is a problem. And if Uyghurs, why not Rohingyas? Why people are not talking about Rohingyas? So the problem is there is hypocrisy on the part of the West as well that we don't want to talk about. We just pick and choose Imran Khan because Imran Khan said this thing. Oh, we are talking to them behind the closed door. The reality is the West is what is doing the biggest hypocrisy. If they deal everybody with the same stick, nobody would be questioning them. That's the problem here. So I think Imran Khan, you can call him anything, but the one thing he's not a hypocrite.
Okay, Yasser Saab, okay, fair enough. Let's address the financial circumstances at the moment in Pakistan. I mean, further 1 billion, loan from China. I mean, that's not going to ease our financial situation at all. Right? I mean, I was speaking to Sayyid Mohsin Abbas earlier. I mean, more IMF, more World Bank.
I'll tell you what. When the Prime Minister Imran Khan's government came into power.
Yeah, go on, Yasser. Yasser Saab. Right, we've lost Yasser Saab. Producers, if we can reconnect, it will be. Yep.
Pakistan has been the amount of loans. Pakistan's been reducing the amount of loan that Pakistan's been taking. I don't know if first year in the government we took 10 billion, then it came down to 6. This year it was 3. So Pakistan's been trying to reduce the amount of loan it's been taking. And this IMF program, Pakistan certainly wants to get out at the most appropriate time. And this is probably, Imran Khan has said this thing, this is the last IMF program we are going into. The demands of the IMF, what we have right now, the situation we have is, IMF says, raise the electricity tariff, raise the petrol prices by 30 rupees a liter. That's not possible. Imran Khan says, look, we are doing things, we are trying to improve the tax base. Instead of increasing the taxes, we want to bring the people into the tax net. And that's the wiser strategy. Rather than raising the taxes for the poor people, bring more people into the tax net. And he's said that this August, they're going to completely automate the Federal Board of Revenue. That's going to bring in a lot of more people who pay taxes.
Yasser Saab, I'm only questioning on the basis of Imran Khan's commitments and and his promises during campaigning that no more IMF, no more World Bank, no more going around other nations and begging other nations.
I know.
Yeah, we're doing
promises.
All of that, right?
The promises.
And then Imran
Khan, I know where you're coming from.
Okay, and then you're discussing.
I know where you're coming.
All right, gone.
Listen.
All right. Yeah.
When Imran, he made promises, but when he came into the power, he got an economy which was badly bruised.
Sure.
So what's been done wrong in last 30, 40 years, you expect him to fix it in 1 year or 3 years? Now the signs of recovery are already showing. Pakistan has now gone from current account deficit to surplus. Pakistan's exports are improving, imports are reducing. So these are all the indicators. Pakistan's been taking less and less loans. So in 5 years' time, inshallah.
5 years' time, okay, great. Yasser, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I've only got about a minute left. So I need, I'm going to give 25 seconds to each of you, inshallah, to wrap up, right? So I raised the hypocrisy on the Uyghurs, I raised the economics, and I raised a third issue. I forgot what I raised. But Sayyid Mohsin, over to you, 25 seconds.
Third issue was the US basis, but let Mr. Mohsin take his time and then I'll take it.
There you go, Yasser. Okay,
well, in 25 seconds, in summary, I think Pakistan are heading in the right direction. I think they need to continue on the line of a resistance economy, move towards self-sufficiency, use their own resources, get rid of these loans as they're trying desperately to do, and don't fall into the neoliberal offensive, which is what IMF is all about. They're trying to basically subjugate Pakistan, all of its institutions and its sector. They need to break free of all of that.
Please have 25 seconds. Fantastic. Yasir Saab, 20 seconds.
Mark my words, Pakistan is not going to remain entangled with IMF in the long run. Pakistan is going to get out of it. And Pakistan, inshallah, is on the right path. Just give us time.
What about its entanglement with China and America? Is that long term?
I think it's in the interest of Pakistan to be on the side of Chinese and the Russians. Americans have not given us anything in the last 70 years. We better choose our sides carefully, and this time we've chosen China and Russia instead of America, I think. Americans are siding with the Indians.
Yasir Saab, fantastic talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us from Pakistan. And Sayyid Mohsin Abbas, I forgot to ask where you joined us from, but thank you very much.
London.
London. Fantastic. All right, thank you very much. Listeners, that was Pakistan. Fantastic interview. Yasir Saab, Sayyid Abbas Saab, great talking to you. Let us know what your thoughts are. We were discussing a very interesting topic. 015824818220779 481822. We're off onto a commercial break. When we come back, we're discussing refugee crisis and human rights. Don't go away. Assalamu alaikum.
The break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
जब भी आपके दरवाजे पे कोई दस्तक हो तो छोटे बच्चों को दरवाजा खोलने से मना करें और खुद भी दरवाजा खोलने से पहले इस बात की तसल्ली कर लें कि दस्तक देने वाले से आप और आपका घर महफूज है। इंस्पायर एफएम कम्युनिटी अवेयरनेस मैसेज।
Luton's most luxurious venue for Asian weddings is now bigger and better than ever before. With 2 venues to choose from, Venue Central can provide the ultimate setting for your wedding. 2 huge venues, 1 high standard, right in the centre of Luton. Visit us online today at venuecentral.co.uk or call us now on 01582 451 767. Venue Central, affordable luxury in a central location.
Biscott Pharmacy, your one-stop health and beauty pharmacy in Luton, stockist of over 8,000 health and beauty products. At Biscott Pharmacy, we offer a range of services, including health advice and repeat prescriptions for collection and delivery to your home. We also offer a Hajj and Umrah vaccination. Come in and see us and ask about our stop smoking service. We're open 7 days a week till late, including bank holidays. Biscott Pharmacy, 157A Biscott Road, Luton. Call 457709.
The status of a Muslim woman in Islam. When she is a daughter, she opens a door of Jannah for her father. When she is a wife, she completes half of the deen of her husband. And when she is a mother, Jannah lies under her feet.
Why do Tops Pizza deliver the top pizzas in Luton and Dunstable?
For a start, all the toppings are 100% halal and Tops use fresh dough every day. Then there's the cheese, the highest quality available. And when it comes to food preparation, cleanliness is taken as part of our faith. So that just leaves the taste, choice, and great offers, including buy one, get one free on all medium, large, and extra large pizzas. Tops Pizzas, Wellington Street, LU1 5AA. Order online, topspizza.com or via Just Eat. Download our app or call 01582 72 5000.
Everyone can now get free rapid COVID-19 tests twice a week. They show your results within 30 minutes. They also show you're doing what you can to protect your loved ones, your friends, your workmates, and that you want to keep life moving again. Around 1 in 3 people who have COVID-19 have no symptoms and are spreading it without knowing. That could be a friend, a relative, a workmate. It could even be you. Rapid tests are easy to get from nhs.uk/get tested. Let's take this next step safely.
Mr. Atiq Malik here from the Ask Your Lawyer show. Do you know your legal rights? Do you have any questions about immigration law or need advice regarding employment law? get your questions answered by a panel of experts on the Ask Your Lawyer show. Catch us every Monday from 7 p.m. onwards, either on 105.1 FM or Facebook Live, or on podcasts such as iTunes or Spotify. You can even tune in on the website as the show is on www.inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban. It is Friday the 25th of June, 15th of Zilqa'dah 1442. We're broadcasting live on 105.1 FM and across our partner stations. Also live on the Facebook and YouTube. Do remember to join tonight's conversation on 01582481822. 07794811822. Let me have your thoughts and your opinions on tonight's conversation. We were discussing Imran Khan and Pakistan in the first half an hour. Would be interesting to hear from our listeners what you made of some of those discussions, some of those points, some of those questions that were being raised. If there's any thoughts, let us know, inshallah. We are going to be moving on to our next topic this evening. Next topic this evening we are going to be discussing is human rights and the migrant community, right? Political asylum seekers, migrants, economic migrants, the world over are seeing, some horrific attacks on migrants across the world in some of those very notorious hotspots. And I'm going to be discussing a recent report that's been issued by the Islamic Human Rights Committee, inshallah, Islamic Human Rights Commission rather. Right, so we've got our guests that are going to be joining us very, very shortly. We're going to be discussing with a couple of experts. We're going to be speaking with Brother Raza Kazim, who's the spokesman for the Islamic Human Rights Commission from London. And we're also going to be speaking to Adam Shaprio. I hope I've got the surname right. Adam serves as the head of communications and visibility, responsible for campaigning for human rights defenders around the world and working to increase the visibility and respect for HRDs, right? Human rights defenders, right? So that's the expert panelists that we've got lined up this evening for you. And of course, it's in context with something that caught my attention, and that was an event that was taking place by the Islamic Human Rights Commission discussing the attacks on migrants and human rights defenders in Italy, right? So I wonder if we've also got our panelists from the Islamic Human Rights on the platform. Let me go straight over and see who we have. I believe we've got Adam joining us this evening. Adam, welcome to Friday Night Live.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Great having you also. Great. So you're the head of communication, visibility, responsible for campaigning, human rights, and raising the awareness and visibility and respect for HRDs. Tell me more about your work, and then let's go straight into this subject matter at hand, which is we're seeing around the world. I have to admit, whether it's America, whether it's Europe, and specifically recently, what caught my attention is news from Italy, where there's been attacks on migrants and human rights defenders in Italy. I don't know if you're aware of that particular story. It'd be good to get a bit more context. But let's also discuss it from a global perspective, because it's not an Italian issue, is it? It's kind of a global phenomenon at the moment.
Yeah. So Frontline, just quickly for your listeners, Frontline Defenders is a organization based in Dublin, Ireland. But we work around the world to provide rapid and practical support to human rights defenders at risk all over the world, working on any and all human rights issues. So, our geographic focus is huge, but we also do take up cases from Europe, such as the cases you're mentioning in Italy, involving human rights defenders there. Certainly, as you said, globally, we're finding unprecedented attacks, actually, against human rights defenders, which is somewhat almost surprising given the last year and a half. The world has largely been in, under certain types of conditions due to COVID. That unfortunately has not resulted in an easing of the kind of attacks we've seen against human rights defenders. That goes everything from killings of human rights defenders to physical attacks to criminalization and online harassment and defamation. So it's pretty much the full spectrum of kind of attacks, and we're seeing increases in this all over the place and almost in every country around the world.
So Adam, what do you think has spearheaded and really led to that kind of an environment?
Well, I think there's a number of factors in that. One is certainly the rise of, sort of right-wing populist nationalist politicians and governments, unfortunately, as a consequence. Certainly after 2001, the increased use of anti-terror legislation in a number of countries and the securitization policies that governments pursued has also led to that kind of increase is a major factor. And then I would say, the ubiquity of online, social media as a form as a tool of harassment, as a tool of defamation and making threats, which unfortunately ultimately results in a lot of cases for human rights defenders in manifesting in real world consequences. As they say, IRL in real life, whether it's charges being brought against people or physical attacks against people. So I think those are three major factors in this.
Okay, all right, Adam, thank you very much for that. We've got Brother Raza Kazim who's joined us also. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Raza.
Wa alaikum salam.
Welcome to Friday Night Live. Good to have you with us. An Islamic human rights event, Brother Raza, discussing the attacks on migrants and human rights defenders in Italy. Of course, that took. In fact, it's going to happen next Tuesday. I thought it's already happened. It's going to happen on Tuesday. Tell me more about what's led to this event and what you're seeking to achieve from it. I understand there's a report around this topic too. Give us more information, give more detail around this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a case of actually carrying on from what Adam has said in terms of the general culture that actually exists within Europe, and it's there's a movement towards the right wing and very ultra populism, racism, kind of Islamophobic kind of narratives that are being pushed forward by all sections of society, political, media, and so on. And there is a lot of mobilization against, and in terms of the anti-immigrant sentiment that has been expressed. And so it's actually looking in particular at the case of Italy while working with the civil society organizations within Italy to actually highlight the kind of issues that are being faced on the ground by people as things become, it's not just rhetoric, it is obviously translating into violence and of various types that is being spread in that part of in that country.
No, appreciate that. Thank you very much. And in terms of, the right-wing tendencies that we're finding, some of the rhetoric around Islamophobia, but it's not necessarily restricted to Muslim migrants or Muslim, ethnicity, if you can call it ethnicity, if you can categorize the Muslims, under one such ethnicity, which you can't, right? It's just a general blanket, a kind of an attack and an attitude towards migrants, asylum seekers as a whole, is it not?
Yeah, I think part of the whole thing is that once you have something where you've got that racist narrative being normalized and being accepted, it becomes directed at ethnicities from across different. It's not going to be restricted to just Muslim. It may well start in a particular country or whatever, directed at one particular group of people, but as with these kind of injustices and these kind of racisms, it doesn't stay in one particular area. And we've seen that in terms of the East European nationalities, Muslims, Roma, African, and Afro-Caribbean communities, even Jews being targeted in this kind of a way. And the Roma themselves have something that is being directed, racism being directed at them in a number of different countries across Europe. And in some of our other reports, we've highlighted that particular case. So I think it is important to recognize that when you have this kind of narrative being normalized, it is not going to be restricted to one particular group. So it is in the interest of all people to actually come together and fight against this these kind of racist narratives and what is going on, regardless of the background that you're coming from. And also, this kind of thing also spreads into other aspects of the mainstream society as well. So I think that there are problems with that come with that narrative and that discourse that impact on everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, it's quite revolting, actually, quite disgusting in terms of how human beings are turning onto fellow human beings, and especially turning against fellow human beings who are the most vulnerable almost in society and most in need, and you're turning against them. And actually, we're seeing some of these horrific, accounts and events that are taking place. I mean, it's incredible. But to what extent, Adam? I mean, firstly, let me ask you the question: what is the fear factor, right? And what what is it that's driving? I mean, you laid out the political context and what are the influencing factors. But what is it that they're fearing from the migrants that leads to that kind of attitude and that kind of behavior? That's one point of discussion, right? And to what extent organizations that like yourself actually pointing the finger at the people who are creating that narrative and that discussion, and that's the politicians, right? And the politicians, I mean, if we take Britain as an example, pre kind of Brexit, the whole debate around Brexit was completely surrounded by this issue of migrants, issue of people, British interest, and people, generally, it gave height to and rise to this, anti-migrant kind of, attitudes and Islamophobia attitudes, right? So, to what extent do these politicians take the blame, and to what extent do organizations like yourselves hold them to account?
Sure. So, if I get to your first question to start with, what is there to fear? This is an interesting thing because a lot of this stuff is basically manufactured. It's manufactured for political purposes by ththese politicians who otherwise don't really have a platform to stand on to achieve political office or to gain power. I'm most familiar with my situation in the United States, where we have a similar process underway, and some other countries as well. In most instances, the research actually shows that having immigrants to a country is actually an economic boon to those countries. This is actually something that the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, early on in the refugee crisis coming from Syria, spotlighted as why Germany was going to welcome refugees, was because they actually were assessing that Germany, like Italy, interestingly enough, was facing a situation where population growth wasn't keeping pace with the needs of the country. And in fact, Italy now has become famous for these emptied villages where they're selling homes online for $1 in order to get people to come and start spending time in Italy. So here you have, on one hand, a country where they're literally begging people to come and take up homes and live in villages that are being depopulated and everything is closing down. And on the other hand, you have migrants who are coming to a country looking for a better life, ready to contribute to those places and ready to start working and learn the language and all these things, and being demonized. So it doesn't make sense by any rational measure. It's really for the purposes of political power and political expediency by those who are feeling left out of the processes of globalization or the processes of liberalization of a lot of these countries and their attitudes. So I think that's kind of how the fear factor gets built up. And of course, you end up with, especially with the rise of social media, but even before that, with the rise of privately owned cable news channels and things like that were owned by either politicians or media figures who became political figures, like in Italy with the history of Silvio Berlusconi, who capitalized on this and used their media platforms and now social media platforms to espouse this hatred and fake news and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. As for us as an organization, we certainly are targeting the governments who are criminalizing human rights defenders In Italy, we have cases of human rights defenders who are providing just medicine, food, clothing to to migrants, and who are being criminalized for that. Their homes and offices are being raided, and they're being charged with all kinds of crimes at this point. Not to mention those who are going out to sea and trying to rescue people on the boats. We're calling the governments to account because they should be abiding by the rule of law, including European agreements that they have. But certainly pointing out the context, the fact that they're being manipulated by right-wing politicians, or in the case of Italy for a while, where the president, the prime minister, and other officials are from that right wing that has reached power, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If I can carry on from a point that Adam made with regards to the point about Germany, that's an interesting one, because that was certainly the case why Angela Merkel did it. But as a result of doing that, she, after the federal elections in 2017, she struggled to form a government. And partly owing to what was perceived as an over generous reception of migrants into the country and the so-called Islamization of Germany as a result. And that was a narrative that was really pushed forward by the right-wing party, Alternative for Germany.
Right.
And
so the struggle at the moment is exactly. I mean, the facts are. I mean, I've got the headlines just in front of me 30 minutes ago, 30 minutes earlier. Scotland's population figures show that it needs migrants, says the Scotsman comment, right? So the facts on the ground tell you that you need those migrants. Right? That's the fact, and that's what Adam was alluding to. But the reality is the political office and the political media or kind of communication and the slogans are that it's not popular to make those kind of comments, right? And if you want to win votes, then those are not the comments to actually make, even though in reality it may mean the fact that you actually need that. And therefore my question was going to be, how do we actually challenge that narrative, and how do you create the alternative narrative, Raza?
I think that's been one of the things that any organization, groups, whatever people are actually working on. It's difficult, because when you've got the social media, when you've got the mainstream media actually pushing forward those narratives, it becomes a problem. I mean, forget about that. I mean, if you look at Bojo, when the whole Brexit thing was going on, and the kind of narratives that were being pushed forward, take back control of our laws, of our borders, and of our cash, all of those kind of things that were being put forward, and it's something that's being done, then you've got a real problem on your hands, because what you've got is the structures of the society, whether it's legal, whether it's political, whether it's media, actually continuing to replicate and reproduce these narratives, the language that they're using and everything. So in terms of challenging it, it's an uphill struggle. And it's a case of highlighting the hypocrisy through these kind of reports that you're writing, through the comments that you're making, and holding a mirror up and saying, actually, you're saying that you're not racist, but actually everything that you're doing is reproducing that. I mean, we even had the situation where you had the Sewell report in terms of saying that there wasn't any structural racism that actually existed within Britain. And when you talk about, the Stephen Lawrence inquiry and all of those things, just to name one of the issues that are being faced by people at a structural level, it's a problem, because what they're doing is not only saying that, it's replicating all of these things, but also challenging the very core of what you're saying by putting forward these. It's a very it's something that's been criticized a lot in terms of how it was put together and so on. But it was something that is being done to even squeeze the spaces in we as human rights organizations can operate, and say that actually what you're talking about in terms of a structural racism doesn't actually exist. So when you ask for solutions, you got to keep on struggling, and you got to keep on fighting so that the message keeps going out that actually these are issues, these are specific things that need to be dealt with, but it's an uphill fight.
Yeah, no doubt about that. As many other good things that any good thing that you want to introduce, it is always going to be an uphill struggle, isn't it? So let us focus very quickly a bit more on the event itself, then, Raza. So the event is on next Tuesday, I believe is at 2 o'clock UK time. And it's it's to discuss the report Saving Grace Attacks on Migrants and Human Rights Defenders in Italy, right? Specifically, tell us more about the event itself. Then, who have you got lined up in terms of panelists?
It's going to be Katrina Aina, who's actually written the report, who is based in Italy, who's going to be talking about the kind of things that have been going on, in particular the squeezing of spaces and so on, of how human rights organizations can actually operate, and the fact that they are what they can actually do is being limited, and they're being attacked at a very kind of different levels, different types of attacks. In terms of being able to do the stuff that needs to be done to help the migrants that are arriving there. So it's something that talks about in a lot more detail about the kind of things that are going to be that they've found and worked on with other human rights organizations on the ground in Italy.
Right. Okay, and for anyone who's interested to join, they can actually join via social media, YouTube, Facebook, and the Islamic Human Rights is it website?
Yes, Islamic Human Rights Commission website, and you can join on there and look at and listen to the kind of things that's actually being produced. There's also an executive summary and a full report that will be there, and I think anyone who's interested in reading the report and looking at what's the specifics of what's actually going on, and maybe asking Katrina questions around what's come out of the report, and think about clarifying things that are how to actually combat some of this and what's actually being done. That can also be done at that point in time.
Right. So I don't know if there's a Adam a league table of naming and shaming who are the worst culprits when it comes to countries and their attitudes with dealing with migrants. Maybe that's an idea that we should put together a league table and name and shame some of these countries. I mean, France is notorious, right? Italy is quite notorious. You know what? The Brits, I'm not sure, but we'll get them on the table somewhere. You got the Americans when it comes to the way they deal with their migrants, right? And you know what? It's not just restricted to the Western countries, because when it comes to the Muslim nations, right? Let's put shed some light on the Muslim nations. I mean, you had Bangladesh closing its borders for the Rohingya Muslims, right? You got Egypt closing its borders for the Palestinians, right? So you got a lot of Muslim nations that should be right on top of that list, because you know what? From the Islamic ethos and the Islamic principles, they should be completely the opposite of the way they are dealing with Muslim migrants, right? So is that an idea, Adam Shapiro, to let's create a league of table and name and shame these countries?
I think unfortunately there would be so much competition for the top position. It would be quite difficult. That said, I think some of the examples you mentioned, Bangladesh with its situation, not only closing the border, but also now creating an island where they want to put all of the Rohingya onto this island off the coast of Bangladesh, is obviously awful. But Australia, with that model basically of keeping people on desolate islands, basically is one of the worst kind of things. What we see right now, though, and that is critical to keep in mind, and this particularly affects Muslims in particular, is Denmark right now, which is effectively saying Syria is a safe country for people to go back to, that Iraq is a safe country for people to go back to, and literally arresting people off the street, taking them and putting them into deportation hearings to get them out of the country. And for a country like Denmark, this is utterly shameful. That a country that has a history of welcoming refugees, quite frankly, and even giving asylum to people who are not only refugees but who are political activists and forced into exile from their home countries, from places like Bahrain and elsewhere. This is just a truly astounding, and Sweden is moving in actually the same direction, another country that has historically been on the opposite side of things. So that's quite bad. I mean, so I think we need to definitely name and shame, but what we need is really a European commitment to change, in the sense that Europe should be a model in this regard. Europe, not only, as we discussed, has a history of it, it also needs population. I mean, this is true pretty much across the board in Europe. And so the future of and viability of this continent, of this political entity, is contingent on having migrants. I would also just like to point out, and just finally, last point is just we've used the word migrant, and that's because it's currently politically in vogue to do so. But realistically, what we're talking about are refugees. These are people who are fleeing violence, who are fleeing, the worst kinds of human rights abuses and situations. And the intentional terminology of calling them migrants, including in the US as well, is intentional to strip these people of human rights claims and consideration.
Right. Okay. Adam and Raza, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thank you very much for joining us, and good luck for the event on Tuesday, Brother Raza. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Right, listeners, that was Adam Shapiro and Raza Kazim from Islamic Human Rights Commission. We were discussing, of course, the state of the refugees around the world, in particularly in Europe, but also, as I was saying earlier, what about the Muslim nations, Muslim world? What is their excuse, right? I mean, it's almost unexcusable, isn't it? Inexcusable. But anyway, we're about to go into a commercial break, inshallah. When we're back, we're going to be discussing the plight of the Uyghur Muslims. The plight of the Uyghur Muslims. Don't go away, because we're going to be discussing with Dr. Salman. But from Islam 21C, I've launched a recent campaign on the Uyghur Muslims, and we're going to be discussing that. We need your attention, we need your focus, and we need your contributions. Don't go away until we come back from the commercial break. It's Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salat al-Asr.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज़े असर का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 721110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته.
Would you like to sponsor the Azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481 810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday night, corresponding to the 15th of Zil-Qa'dah 1422. We are broadcasting live to Luton on 105.1 FM and also across our partner stations. We're broadcasting to our partner stations in Sheffield, to our partner stations in Peterborough, in Derby, in Nottingham. So assalamu alaikum to all of our listeners across all of those territories. Those of you that are listening closer around the areas of Luton, Bedfordshire, assalamu alaikum to all of you. Also, those of you that are listening to us via the social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, assalamu alaikum to you also. Do remember to join tonight's conversation, tonight's discussion. Some interesting topics that we've discussed in the first hour. We've been discussing Pakistan, and we've been discussing the refugee crisis and the attacks against the human rights defenders and the refugees across a lot of the European and Western countries, and also, quite honestly and frankly, some of the Muslim countries. So any thoughts on any of those stories? 01582 481 822, 01582 481 822, 07779 481 822, 07779 481 822 is the number for your SMS and WhatsApp messages. I've got my desk covered with water. I managed to spill water during the commercial break, so I've been cleaning that for the last couple of minutes. But anyway, let me get back to tonight's show, and let's move on to our next story, inshallah. Our next story is, as I was introducing it earlier, is a campaign that has been launched by our brothers and a very popular platform, a Muslim platform for Islamic culture, Islamic advice, opinions, and also, I have to say, Islamic political campaigning around Islamic and Muslim issues, and that's our brothers and sisters is at Islam 21C. All right, so Islam 21C, we recently were discussing with I think it was Dr. Salman himself, or Brother Haytham, or Sheikh Haytham, around a campaign not too long ago. But recently, Islam 21C have launched a campaign, National Solidarity, or stand for our brothers and sisters of the Uyghur background. And subhanAllah, we have been covering the issue around the Uyghur Muslims for a while, right? For a while. I know it's been making headline news for a while, and it is a bit of it's an interesting topic, not in the positive way, but in the fact that a lot of the Western states have been making a lot of noise about the Uyghur Muslims for obvious reasons, because of course it's the Chinese under the spotlight, for a difference, and it's not America, or it's not Israel under the spotlight for once. And then of course recently also we also saw that Imran Khan was under the spotlight for having a very close relationship with the Chinese government, and of course Pakistan, as we were discussing earlier, is very close to China. But when it comes to then actually addressing the Chinese treatment of the Uyghur Muslims, Pakistan is, at least on a public level, quite quiet. Anyway, let's leave that conversation for a moment, but let's go to the brothers and find out, more about this campaign, Stand for Uyghurs, what this campaign is about, what this campaign intends to achieve. The idea of the concentration camps, as some have called them, where 1 million to 3 million Muslims are locked up. They call them the re-education centers or camps. That's what the Chinese refer to them. A lot of the commentators refer to them as concentration camps, right? And they've been alike to, you know, what we saw, you know, the Germans do, you know, to the Jewish community not too long ago, right? And there's horrific news stories out there when it comes to the details and the atrocities that are being committed against the Uyghur Muslims. But that's been going on for a few years now. So why this campaign at this particular moment in time? Let's address those questions. And let's also address the question of how we as a community can get involved. How can we get involved? What is this campaign seeking to do? And what are some of the events that are happening, inshallah? So a lot of questions that we need answering. And we've got the right experts to hopefully answer these questions for us. Right, let me go and see who's joined us. I think we've got Dr. Salman Butt, mashallah. Dr. Salman Butt, of course, is no stranger to Friday Night Live, studied biochemistry at Imperial College London. Of course, nothing to do with the topic that we're discussing, but that's his background. A very active da'wah career, mashallah. So we're going to welcome Dr. Salman in a minute. But we've also got Brother Ahmed Hussain, who's the spokesperson for Muslim Public Affairs Committee UK, and they have been working on coordinating awareness events between the Uyghur activists and well-known imam to bring their generation-long struggle against China's communists to the attention of the UK Muslims. So, assalamu alaikum to both of you, inshallah ta'ala. And let me go first to Dr. Salman. Dr. Salman, tell us more about this campaign.
Walaikum salam wa barakatuh. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, Jazakumullah khairan for the invitation. So this campaign, it's a coalition of many Muslim organizations in the UK particularly. But we have an Islamic ethos. We're doing this, bringing this campaign forward from our own platform, alhamdulillah, as a Muslim community. But we are reaching out to anyone and anyone who wants to join. Basically, this campaign about the Uyghurs is centered around three tracks. Number one, motivation, to motivate people to, inform us how our voice can actually make a difference to the lives of our Uyghur brothers and sisters. Number two, knowledge, that's connecting the Uyghur story to the broader narrative of the Ummah, and also informing people with, properly substantiated reports and information about what's actually going on in East Turkestan, or so-called Xinjiang province, to the Uyghur brothers and sisters concentration camps. You've seen, the different reports here, organ harvesting, child separation, and so on and so forth, torture. And number three, most importantly, channeling us to effective action. Okay, so number one, motivation. Number two, knowledge. And number three, effective forms of action, where someone can come through this system, this process, and come out the other end informed, motivated, and ready to carry out some types of effective action, inshallah. So a few dozen organizations on board, and getting messages left, right, and center of more and more big organizations coming on board, alhamdulillah. Impact UK on board, of course. And our first kind of main event, you can call it, the main launch of this coalition, is the demonstration of solidarity outside the Chinese embassy on the 1st of July. That's next Thursday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. inshallah. Many prominent speakers and sheikhs going to be delivering talks. There's going to be lots of activities, inshallah, and a spectacle, inshallah, to make our voices heard and stand with our brothers and sisters who are suffering in concentration camps in East Turkestan. I mean, the 1st of July is a symbolic day. Our Uyghur brothers and sisters themselves, they told us that we want our brothers and sisters to stand up on this day in particular, because this is the 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. So they're going to be, in China, it's a huge, thing, there's fanfare, there's, national day off and all that kind of stuff. So in many different countries, people are organizing to show solidarity, but the eyes of the people are on the UK. The whole world is looking at the UK Muslim community. Many people have called this the center of Islam in the West, especially in London, for example, the Chinese embassy. We need to show our Uyghur brothers and sisters that we're standing with them. We need to turn up. We need to, make a noise, even if it's just for the purpose of giving them some moral support and solace and consolation that, what, the Ummah has not forgotten us. They're getting, wiswas from shaitan and the shayateen that, look, the Muslims have forgotten you. Why are you, as you know, there's a war against their heritage, their Islamic heritage, their culture, their identity as Muslims. Owning a Quran, let alone reciting it, is banned. It's illegal. Fasting Ramadan is illegal. Saying Assalamu alaikum in public, is a sign of terrorism. okay, for the Chinese Communist Party that will land you in a Chinese concentration camp. So these types of things, you know, and this is off the back of 20, 30, 40 years of communist kind of indoctrination in schools. You know, you might see, if you speak to an average Uyghur brother and sister, they'll tell you they don't know much about Islam because it was kind of educated out of them, from these state schools and so forth. So holding on to their, you know, whatever embers of iman that they have left in their community, we need to ensure that they feel that, look, the Muslim Ummah is with us. You know, this is the earliest Turkic people to accept Islam. 1,000 years ago, Islam came to these people, and these are the people who migrated west and became the people that we watch TV programs about now, you know, Ertugrul and all these Ghazis and Alps and this and that and all these beys, right? The founders of Ottoman Khilafah. These were the Turkic people from East Turkestan that we will now call Uyghurs. You know, they share these common ancestors. So the point is, if you like Ertugrul, you should like these brothers and sisters here. You know, if you're a fan of Ertugrul, these are Ertugrul's actual real, family members.
Yeah, subhanallah. Jazakallah, Dr. Salman. Let's bring in the conversation. Brother Ahmed is saying you'll have to unmute yourself firstly, Brother Ahmed. Assalamu welcome to Friday Night Live. Tell us about the MPAC involvement with the campaigning around the Uyghur Muslims and their plight. And as I was saying earlier, I mean, their plight has been brought to the fourth, mainstream media for several years. So to what extent are we making inroads into the Muslim community in terms of raising awareness over the last year or so, right? And are you seeing more positive response? Are you seeing the Muslim community come on board? And what further do you expect from them, and what further can they do?
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan for inviting me. So before I start talking about all the different things that everyone can get involved with, the first and primal point to take in mind is the intent, the motivation. Let's boil it down, bring it back to the first point. Why should Muslims give a damn about Muslims on the other side of the world? Because really it comes down to a test of our iman. How connected do we feel to our own ummah? How connected do we feel to our brothers and sisters? If we feel nothing, that says something about our iman. And so what Allah does with those He loves, He tests those He loves. And we want to be those who are loved by Allah. We need to see this as a test of our iman. We need to do something for our ummah in East Turkestan. That's the very, very first point that I hope your listeners take in mind. This is an opportunity. Allah has given us an opportunity. Those of us who are comfortable, who are not under oppression, who have a political voice, who have the possibility to boycott and lobby and so on. This is a test from Allah. Do we use these blessings for His cause? Secondly, we need to do something. Fine. How do we do it in the best way possible? Alhamdulillah, this initiative by Islam 21C, stand for Uyghurs. This is the best way to do it, in a united, coordinated way. Because, let's be honest, one person can't change the world. One person can't change the world. And on oppression on this scale, one organization can't change the world. It needs to be a coalition. And the great thing about working with people, about working with organizations, is if an individual can burn out. An individual might get the wrong idea, but by working in a coalition, by working in a team, we can give each other nasiha, we can strategize, we can look at the bigger picture. So MPAC UK, what we have done last year, we found some Uyghur activist organizations. We found some masajid that wanted to raise awareness in their masajid, and we brought them together. Why? Because if the Muslims of the UK want to help the situation of the Muslims in East Turkestan, we have to work together. No one is going to change anything by themselves. And so that's the way we got to look ahead. We got to think, how can the UK Muslims get all of their political power together and, like using a sledgehammer on a tiny nail, make the most consequential impact? So, there's so much that we can do as a coalition, as individuals. But the first thing that we have to keep in mind, it's a test of our iman. And secondly, if we want to sincerely make consequential impact It has to be in an organized coalition kind of way, exactly like this campaign. And then we can start to talk about what we can do. So much we can do. Get your local mosque involved. So, sorry, does anyone want to jump in?
Go on, continue, Ahmed.
Get your local mosque involved. Talk to them about doing khutbahs about the Uyghurs. Invite Uyghur activists and witnesses to come to your mosque. If you can't do that, fine. Maybe you're a university student. Get your ISOCs involved. Universities and ISOCs have a key role to play in two ways. Again, inviting speakers down, also in divesting from Chinese companies that are profiting from oppression. I mentioned boycotting. Anyone can boycott. In terms of donations and fundraising, there's a lot of legal campaigns that inshallah have been going and will continue to go on, and that needs money. Unfortunately, that's the way the world works. To make a legal case, you need to have money. But that's, alhamdulillah, another opportunity that we can participate in. And like Dr. Salman mentioned, next Thursday, 1st of July, outside the Chinese embassy, 5 p.m., if I'm correct, between 5 to 8 p.m., inshallah, it's a rally. And why are rallies important? Because despite all the other things that we will be doing, visually demanding, visually coming together and making that demand, and not just making the demand, but making the point that we are here to stay. This concern and this cause is here to stay. That needs to be said. That needs to be done. So there's so much that we can do, that we will do, inshallah, with Allah's will. But it all comes down to that initial point. We have to do it in an organized, focused way. We have this coalition. There are so many, alhamdulillah, so many organizations involved. So please participate with these organizations. All of these different organizations, they have so many different strengths, different focuses. Whichever one works for you, join in with it, inshallah.
Okay. Right, Jazakallah for that, Brother Ahmed Hussein. Jazakallah for also really connecting it to the Aqidah and motivating, the believing listener, and connecting it to their responsibility as a Muslim, as a believer. Let's focus more on the campaign itself, the different elements of the campaign, Dr. Salman. Let's discuss what are the different areas that you're intending to cover, right? So you mentioned the demonstration on the first. I also note from Ahmed Hussein, he's mentioning with regards to, that no individual can achieve this, or kind of overturn this, right? No organization can. I mean, it almost prompts me and pushes me towards this kind of conversation. What are our Muslim countries doing and leaders doing, and how we are also putting some pressure on them? Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned, Ertugrul and the Ghazis, and who isn't hooked onto these documentaries. But the very nation that is producing these documentaries, what is it doing with regards to its own heritage? Because its own heritage it opened up their doors to the oppressed people of Byzantium and the oppressed people of Rome, and exactly it was what attracted people to Islam, right? And because of the justice of the system, is there any communication with the likes of the Turkish embassy in London, the Pakistani embassy in London, who have got a very close relationship with China, to say that, look, you need to raise this profile of the Uyghur Muslims with at a state level, and make sure that that's represented. Is that part of the campaign? Is that something that we should be doing?
So this campaign, it's a good question. This campaign is not linked to any country or any government or anything like that. These are completely independent, non-governmental organizations and individuals coming together, and that's one of our strengths, I think. One of our advisors, who's the Secretary General of the World Uyghur Congress, which is the global representative, basically, body of the Uyghur diaspora, he's written a whole book called Menace, right? And he explains how China has actually been colonizing the Muslim world, right? Not just like Muslim majority countries, but also other countries like in Africa and so forth. So it's actually impossible for many people connected to governments in probably most countries in the Muslim majority world to speak out against China. Their family could be in trouble, or their job is in trouble, or whatever, right? So that's the sad reality of the situation. But China, one of the leading activists, he told me one thing. He said, you can tell how much you've hit someone by their reaction, right? And a few weeks ago, when the Uyghur brothers and sisters were in London in Westminster for the Uyghur Tribunal,
Yeah.
there was a huge reaction by the Chinese Communist Party, and like they were kind of recklessly scrambling to do press conferences, getting the families of those witnesses giving testimony to publicly denounce them, and making all this kind of stuff up. Ministers who were before never on social media now opening social media accounts just to, in the non-Chinese Western non-Chinese media accounts like social media sites like Twitter and Facebook and stuff. They're coming to these channels now just to save face and to try and counter some of the truth that's coming out with propaganda. You might have heard of this 50 Cent army, right? Employing legions of trolls to basically spread propaganda and misinformation. This only happens when your voice, especially they say Muslims in Europe, North America and Australasia, right? These three continents, regardless of the ill means through which we happen to get this privilege, we do have a privilege, we do have a burden and obligation to use this ability to speak out freely and make a noise about this. So you just saw a few years ago Mesut Ozil, from Arsenal Football Club, just tweeted about the silence of Muslim countries and the silence of the world, and they look at the reaction, right? It shows that he hit a raw nerve there. You have the ability for people in the public eye to make a noise and put some pressure on the Chinese Communist Party. They cancelled millions of dollars worth of contracts for broadcasting Arsenal matches. They deleted his fan pages. They set up massive committees calling him, trying to discredit him, calling him a liar and all that kind of stuff, deleting him from a computer game, right? They deleted his player from a computer game.
Quite petty. But Dr. Salman, I like the point that you make, and I want to go to Ahmed on this question, right? Very, very briefly, Brother Ahmed, right? With Dr. Salman says that the fact of the matter is London is considered the Islamic capital of the Western world, isn't it? Whatever happens in London, the more noise you can make in London, the more political activism you can generate, right, on a particular issue, the more the center of attention you are, right? And people always talk about, it's funny, I go to Pakistan and they talk about the Muslims in London, right? They're really fascinated by it. That's the reality, which is a very positive, right? Which is very positive. But you know what? There might be some people listening and they're going to say, last month we were campaigning on Palestine, right? The month before that we were campaigning on another topic. And do you see what I'm saying? So there might be a bit of lethargy creeping in. I know you addressed the Aqidah issue slightly before, right? But address this issue for some of our listeners who are thinking, and then the Kashmir issue. Imran Khan said, Kashmir issue is more important for me, in Pakistan, right? Is it a case that Kashmir is more important for me because I'm of Pakistan origin, or Palestine is more important for me because I'm an Arab, and therefore the Uyghur issue isn't quite there?
So firstly, I've mentioned the ummah point. I don't want to repeat myself, but a Muslim who is facing injustice in one place, it's as if it's your own family member facing injustice. But people will feel lethargy. But there's another way to look at it as well. I think I can't remember who said it, but there's a simple statement: injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So for example, we see what the Palestinians are facing. No, we saw the measures that Israel started implementing on the Palestinians a couple of decades ago. These are measures that is now very commonplace in Kashmir, inflicted on them by India. And the policing tactics, the military tactics, we're seeing those same tactics on the streets of the US during the Black Lives Matter protests and so on. Injustice anywhere becomes injustice everywhere. Right. And if that still doesn't motivate you, then at least look at it this way. If you don't like to see what's happening in East Turkestan, one day it will come to your doorstep. And it's just a matter of time. If it's not yourself, it's going to be your children.
Right, so I've got a minute and a half, and I want to give that last minute and a half to Dr. Salman just to wrap it up and just to give a summary of the key actions and what we're asking the people to do in terms of getting involved. But I like your statement: injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Jazakallah, Brother Ahmed. Dr. Salman, minute and a half you have.
Jazakallah khair. So just to echo what Ahmed said earlier, actually, all of these things that he mentioned, legal battles, social media awareness, all of the things he mentioned, I was really, nodding my head because I know different organizations as part of this coalition, each one is bringing that element to that. For example, one of the partners, Cordoba Foundation, there was a meeting on Monday with an international criminal courts lawyer, basically raising funds, for example, for taking a court to the ICC, taking a case to the ICC on behalf of the Uyghur Muslims, for example. So these things, they're very, very important. We have together, we're much stronger than individual organizations, doing their own thing. But alhamdulillah, this is all part of the Stand for Uyghurs campaign.
Right, 20
like
seconds.
I mentioned, so motivation, knowledge, and action. These three. The third element of action is split up into many different areas, and we're all, go to standforuyghurs.com to be directed towards what the next piece of action you can do. And the first thing is the protest, the demonstration on 1st of July, inshallah, 5 to 8 p.m. outside Chinese Embassy.
8 p.m. outside the Chinese Embassy. Be there, inshallah. Dr. Salman and Brother Ahmed Hussain, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but Jazakallah for joining us this evening.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. Okay, listeners, that was Salman and Brother Ahmed, and we were discussing Stand for the Uyghur campaign. More information, islam21c.com. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so when we're coming back from the commercial break, inshallah, we will continue the conversations. Plenty more to discuss. Don't go away. We'll be back right after the commercial break. Until then, assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Mohammed Usman. I'm a local scout leader. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Keep tuned in to Inspire on 105.1 FM.
One of the best ways to tackle the spread of COVID-19 is to get vaccinated. Join the millions across the UK who've safely received the COVID-19 vaccination. Don't delay in getting your vaccine. If you live in Bedford Borough, book your vaccine now at www.bedford.gov.uk/vaccinations or call 01234 718 077.
Did you see that guy on TV?
What, that no comment guy?
Yeah, he was sick. What was his name?
I think it was Atiq Malik.
Yeah, Atiq Malik of Liberty Law Solicitors. Atiq Malik heads up the criminal law team at Liberty Law Solicitors, specialising in everything from serious crime down to road traffic offences.
To find out more or for a free telephone consultation, call 01582 459955.
Liberty Law, there when you need us most.
Oh Lord, don't let me ever turn away from you, no matter how many trials and difficulties you test me with. Let these difficulties serve to make me a stronger Muslim.
Crescent Hall, a large, elegant venue in the heart of Luton. As well as a grand banqueting hall, Crescent Hall provides you with kitchen facilities, a bridal room, a family room, as well as a prayer room. Ideal for conferences, weddings, mehndi and engagement parties. We have ample parking for guests. Our rates are highly competitive. Contact us today for a personalised quote. Call us on 01582 72 33 86. For further information, visit us at www.crescenthall.co.uk or email us at info@crescenthall.co.uk. Crescent Hall, adding comfort and style to your event.
Shop at Rangdar for fashionable ladies style and the latest designer or bespoke made-to-measure Asian casual and party wear, bridal wear, footwear, handbags and so much more. That's Rangdar, bringing colours to you. Visit the store at 156B Lee Grove Road, LU48HX or buy online at rangdar.com for click and collect or worldwide shipping. Open 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. every day. Rangdar, that's RUNGDAR.com for quality products and service at affordable prices.
It's estimated that 5,760 children become orphaned every day, and the numbers are rising. UKIM ensures that the orphans we sponsor receive healthcare, food, education, and shelter to show them that there are people who care.
This Ramadan, from just £30 per month, you can make a real change in an orphan's life. Your sponsorship will provide them with much needed essentials to ease their situation. For orphan sponsorship, call now or visit ukim.org.
इतदाल हुर्रियत और हक की आवाज़ हमेशा गालिब रही है और यही आवाज़ हमेशा गालिब रहेगी। आइए और सुनिए हक की आवाज़। मैं हूं इमाम हाफिज इजाज़ अहमद, सुनाऊंगा आपको प्रोग्राम आवाज़ हक में हक की आवाज़, हर सोमवार 11 बजे से 12 बजे तक, ओनली ऑन इंस्पायर FM 105.1।
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Shaban. It is Friday the 25th of June and it's already 7:30 p.m. Subhanallah. That's 1.5 hours of Friday Night Live show edition, this special edition over. And it means we're in our last half an hour of the show, inshallah. 01582 481 822. 07779481822 is the number here in the studio, and of course we are broadcasting live to Luton and our partner stations, also broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. Do remember to like and join tonight's conversation discussion. Let me know your thoughts on the show tonight and the topics that we've covered on tonight's show, inshallah. I hope that you've enjoyed the topics, the subject matters that we've discussed. Hopefully it's also added to your awareness, it's added to your understanding. Okay, the idea of discussing some of these topics for me personally also is to broaden my perspective, broaden my understanding. Let's hear the debate from the experts. Let's hear the opinions, and let's educate our community with regards to what is happening around the world. And unfortunately, a lot of the times it's not very positive, is it? Unfortunately. But anyway, there you go. That's live today. Just before we went into the commercial break, we were discussing the Uyghur campaign, raising awareness with regards to our Uyghur Muslim brothers and sisters. Stand for Uyghurs. Very, very important campaign. Islam21c.com/stand for Uyghurs. And as Dr. Salman was saying, the first event in the campaign is on the 1st of July, Thursday, 1st of July, 5 p.m. outside the Chinese embassy. Be there, inshallah. All right, let's move on. And when we're moving on and when we're discussing international politics, what's happening around the world, you know what? I'll tell you a headline that I saw, but you know what? It kind of slipped away because I didn't see much media coverage of it. And that was the Iran's presidential elections, right? Iran's presidential elections. Now, I don't know if this makes a huge difference or not. And that's what we're trying to establish on Inspire FM Friday Night Live. But conservative, well, this is not me saying conservative, but conservative Ibrahim Raisi wins Iran's presidential elections. According to the final results by the Interior Ministry, out of the total 29 million votes, he got almost 18 million. So that's quite a large majority, but the turnout was 48%, the lowest in the Iranian history. Now, for a long time, it is said that the Iranian politics is really not about the president. It's really about someone else. Let me go to an expert and speak to the expert because they are the ones who really know what's going on. Hopefully we've got Hamza Ali Shah. Hamza Ali Shah, here we go. Hamza Ali Shah, excellent. So we got Brother Hamza Ali Shah, political researcher, writer based in London with a focus on global politics. His work has appeared in the Tribune magazine and Byline Times. Assalamu alaikum, Hamza. Welcome to
Alaikum salam. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great to have you with us, inshallah. Hopefully you're going to shed a bit more than a dummy's guide that I was given to the Iranian presidential election, right? So tell me, is it going to make any difference now that we've got a so-called conservative Ibrahim Raisi winning Iran's presidential election? Does the president really hold much power in Iran? Where's the power in Iran?
The power is mainly congested at the very top, which is Ayatollah Khamenei. I mean, he holds the control over everything. I mean, even in this election, he almost handpicked the candidates. I mean, I think maybe 40 odd candidates applied, and maybe even more. And it got down to a few in the end, and only 2 reformists. Now, obviously, Rouhani is seen as a reformist from before, so there was a suggestion that they want to move on from that type of politics. Now, you asked about whether he will have an impact. It's hard to tell because obviously they've got the negotiations coming with the US, but I think the biggest challenge at the moment is the domestic unrest. As you pointed out, only I think 48.8% of people voted, which is I think the lowest since 1979. He's essentially the Iranian line when it comes to foreign policy is well known. Everybody knows their line on, for example, on Israel, on nuclear missiles. On regionally and globally, but when it comes to the domestic unrest, you've got economic recession, which was essentially exacerbated by Trump's withdrawal from the Accords. Then you had the coronavirus pandemic, and since about 2017, 2018, there have been relentless protests in the country. So people see, this is not from me, this is what the people, they see it as a self-serving establishment. They see, so if there's discontent, it's not necessarily just with Raisi or Khamenei, it's the entire establishment, the entire apparatus. And therefore, I think whether he will make a difference is not known yet, but ultimately the apathy people hold is not just towards him, but the entire Iranian establishment.
Right. But Hamza, isn't the domestic situation almost intrinsically linked to the international situation? So the economic issues, okay, to what extent is it actually impacted by the sanctions at the moment? Because Iran, let's look at it politically, it's almost isolated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you got that. It doesn't have exactly very warm relationships with any of the Gulf nations or the Muslim nations, right? I think Pakistan probably a bit more of a warmer relationship than the Arab nations, right? So internationally, it's kind of cut off. From the Gulf states, there's a strong, not a hard, cold shoulder, but more open, almost animosity, right? They prefer to, align with Israel than with Iran. They see Israel as a friend, and they're normalizing relationship with Israel, but they see Iran, a Muslim nation, as a threat to them, right? So to what extent is the domestic situation directly proportional to what's happening over the borders?
I mean, it certainly is, because their economy hit a really bad recession as soon as Trump withdrew from the accord. Now, Raisi himself has said, because he's been asked, are you going to return to the agreement? And his argument, and you could argue it is a coherent argument, he says, well, we retained our commitments. We didn't go against. It was Trump that left. The agreement was there from 2018. Trump came in, and 2015, and Trump in 2018 left. So they would argue that actually there's nothing for them to return to, because they've remained within their commitments. And as you pointed out, they're sort of seen as like the black sheep in the region. The Gulf states refuse to cooperate with them. Israel continuously, although it possesses nuclear arms, it refuses it. But Israel it's sort of documented they have nuclear capabilities, and yet it's seen as Iran can't have nuclear capabilities. It's constantly on the tip of the tongue of the US, Israel, the various, like I said, Egypt, the UAE, all of these other countries. So it is very isolated, but I think it's the average Iranian, it's hard for them for them it's like, well, we see it as a consequence of the regime. Now that might not be entirely correct, but like I said, it is intrinsically linked, but they see it as the fault of sort of the establishment.
Right. So tell me also, I mean, right, so there's no doubt that Iran has a strong political influence in the region, in the Islamic countries, right? It has a political aspirations, and we know that very clearly, just as Qatar has, just as Turkey has, just as Saudi has, and they're all vying against one another, aren't they, to see who can establish themselves as the main player in the region. But I mean, when we talk about Iran and when we talk about America, then generally, what I've seen and what I've read is that Iran is, behind the doors, is always cooperating with America when it comes to Iraq and stability in Iraq, when it comes to even in Syria, generally speaking, it's very much in line with the Americans. So Trump, we know he had this complete mentality of the right-wing mentality, and he just pulled out, and he was very pro-Israel. Do you think we're going to get a shift of attitudes now that Biden's in power, right? And perhaps we're going to get those conversations and both of them back on the table? I know you said that Iran hasn't pulled out, never pulled out with the Americans, but do you think there's any glimmer of hope, or do you see things worsening?
I think with Biden, because he's come in and to sort of diplomatic approach. He's talked about sort of the international order. He's talked about restoring cooperation with allies and not having sort of this hostility all the time. Ultimately, he believes in sort of containing Iran. He still believes in dialogue, but of course within certain parameters. He said, and him and his allies have said that they want Iran to reduce. They want to impose conditions on Iran, and obviously, so it's a policy of containment ultimately. But that's why it comes down to the Iranian citizens when they say, well, you're insisting that the US is an adversary and yet you're cooperating with them in Iraq. But our ills are as a result of, for example, the trade agreement that Trump pulled out of, the sanctions, all of these things, your antics in the rest of the region. So it's a hard one to look at, because, like you said, Iran as well, they've sustained themselves. Everybody knows their place in the region. They're sort of taken seriously. Nobody can say Iran is like a weak link in the region. And yet at the moment, Biden is sort of approaching them with caution. But this is why Raisi comes in, because he's come in and he's sort of, Rouhani was seen as a reformist, sort of a moderate. This Raisi, he's come in and he said, we're not gonna reduce our involvement in the region with sort of military groups and proxies. We're not gonna abstain on any commitments. We're not going to return on any commitments to the deal. So he's coming to a more hardline view, and you could argue he's justified in doing so.
No, okay, that's fair enough, having those attitudes. But how's he planning on addressing his domestic crises?
That's the biggest challenge, because a lot of the commentators have spoken about the foreign policy. But I think whether he'd won or whether Rouhani had stayed, I think the foreign policy remains intact. Everybody knows roughly what their ideas are, what their ambitions are. But domestically, it's growing year on year. The unrest, the apathy, it's growing. And now it's sort of, he may play a card where he may blame it on Rouhani because his inauguration is not for another, I think, not till August. So he may continue to just ride that wave. But ultimately, students in university, they're slowly coming. They're slowly sort of, they've got slogans. And the apathy is towards Khamenei, it's towards him. It's growing, and it's not showing signs of letting off. And now the pandemic has obviously only worsened.
Absolutely. So moving away from Iran, Hamza, a political researcher, writer based in London. What's your specialism? What do you like? Focusing on most in terms of your political research and work.
Recently, I've focused a lot on the Middle East, but I've written as well. I've been commissioned throughout on things concerning Britain, the pandemic, general elections. We've got a by-election coming up in Batley and Spen. I've been writing on that. So it's not a cliche, but yeah, international politics in general. With everything that happened with Gaza lately, it was more of a Middle East focus. But yeah, I like to delve into all sorts of global politics.
And based in London?
Based in London, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, Hamza Ali Shah, great to have you with us. Thank you very much for your time, but unfortunately we've run out of time.
Pleasure.
And I've got to move on to the next story. Thank you very much, Hamza.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, listeners, that was Hamza Ali Shah. Nice, succinct, quick update on the Iranian presidential elections and what it means for Iran. I mean, that's really interesting what Hamza was saying, that in terms of the domestic situation is the key for Iran. The international situation, it looks like it's almost fixed in constitutional, fixed in writing in terms of what is that foreign policy going to be for Iran. I don't know to what extent they actually use the foreign kind of politics as a distraction from the domestic crises that they're facing, and almost as a scapegoat, as an excuse for some of the crises that they're in domestically, because that's the key issue. How do you raise jobs? How do you provide employment? How do you address some of the civil unrest within the country? But anyway, something for us to discuss another time. Right, so where are we? Let me go back to my other screen and let me see what is going on. Right, so we've got about 13 minutes remaining. So it's been a packed show, fantastic lineup this evening. Producers led by Brother Tariq, Jazakallah khair. Great show, good lineup. As always, we're going to be moving on to our last story, and we're going to bring it local, right? What is Friday Night Live without bringing a story which has a local twist to it, right? And we're discussing, right, a very clear and a very succinct message, which is let's get Luton vaccinated. Right, let's get Luton vaccinated. Luton, where are you? Are we awake? Are we asleep? Right, because I'm seeing this message. Let's get Luton vaccinated. I actually thought Luton's already vaccinated. So who is out there who's not currently vaccinated? Raise your hands, right? 01582 481 822 0779 822. What's your excuse for not getting vaccinated? Mashallah, we've had quite a number of conversations on the show. Last week, I remember, brother, our very own expert in the house, brother Fahad Matin, was on the show. It would have been good actually to speak to Fahad and just find out how last Sunday went, because last Sunday was a walk-in opportunity in the Luton Central Mosque where you could just walk in, no questions asked, and you could be jabbed, right? You could be jabbed with the COVID vaccination, which was fantastic. Brother Fahad Matin, if you're listening, let me know how that went last Sunday. But we're going to be speaking to, right, I'm going to struggle with the name here, so I need some help, right? But I think is it Cicely Scarborough from Public Health Service Manager. Cicely, you're on mute. If you can hear me, that is, let me know. But we're going to be discussing, let's get Luton vaccinated very, very shortly, as soon as I get through to Cicely, right? Let me go scroll up and get the message. I did have a message earlier. There we go. Here it is. Cicely works in public health and will be discussing the importance of getting vaccinated, and also hopefully touching upon some of the myths that are circulating about the vaccines. Now, I'm hoping, right, that some of those myths that are circulating about the vaccines have kind of died away, right? Because I think earlier on in the process, there was a lot of myths that were being circulated, but I haven't seen that same level of myths going around. And generally, the statistics are showing me, and they're showing us nationally, that we're doing a fairly good job in terms of people are getting vaccinated, people are going forward. I mean, it was fantastic to actually see some of the sports stadiums in London, right? And I know it was West Ham and maybe another one where you know the queues outside of people that were lining up to get vaccinated was fantastic. I mean, it was a massive queue of people lining up to get vaccinated. Right? So that's all positive news, right? And of course, this is quite key, isn't it, in terms of Britain getting unlocked, that final unlock, right? That is due for a review on the 5th of July, which is almost a week plus away, right? So what's happening, Luton? Why are we not fully getting vaccinated? Whilst I'm asking Luton what's happening, I need to also ask my producers what's happening. Where is our guest? Where is my guest for tonight, right? I thought we were almost connected. I thought Cicely had joined, but now I can't see any guest lined up. Okay, 01582 481 822 0779 0779 481 822. Have you been vaccinated? Right? Have you been vaccinated? Need to know if you've been vaccinated. Have you had the first vaccination, second vaccination? Have you not been vaccinated? Right? And if not, why not? Let me hear any concerns, any questions that people still have. I believe if you're over 18, right, that everyone over 18 is now able to be vaccinated. And there are, I remember Brother Fahad was telling me last week, and there was his also a colleague that was on the show last week, forget the brother's name, but he was telling me that there are some centers in Luton where you can actually go and walk in and still get vaccinated. So it's not just the Islamic Center or Luton Central Masjid, which was Sunday, but there's other venues also. And I think he mentioned Inspire, not Inspire FM, not to be confused with Inspire FM. Don't please come to Inspire FM to receive your vaccinations. It's the Inspire Sports Stadium. Right, Brother Hossam, speak to me. What's happening? Where is my guest for the next topic? Here we go. Just when I asked that, I think I might have Cicely Scarborough. Cicely, can you hear me? No, can't hear me. Right, also, whilst we're waiting for Cicely to join, let me go out to my listeners and just a quick recap what we've been discussing earlier today in tonight's show. It's been a very, very busy show, and we have been discussing Pakistan. Pakistan. We've been discussing Pakistan, Imran Khan's interview. I mean, it was a very interesting interview. I definitely agree with Brother Zafar Saab. Jazakallah for your comments earlier on WhatsApp. And Brother Abdul Akbar said that, you know what, it was a very tough interview. And it was a very tough interview. And, you know, Imran Khan had to navigate himself in a very strategic position. I know there's a lot of sympathizers who say, look, Imran Khan is doing the best he possibly can. He's under a lot of pressure. And I know some of my critics say I'm being a bit too harsh on Imran Khan. All right, guys, I know I'm being a bit harsh, but that's my job, right? To ask a bit of tough questions. But it was really interesting, actually. Fantastic lineup that we had earlier. And it was a really good conversation. I'm sure Brother Zafar would have loved to be part of that conversation. Now, I'm hearing that Sicily has joined. Brother Tariq, you're saying she is connected, but I can't see no one. I can't see no one. And if I can't see no one, yeah, exactly. All right. So I just got a good comment from my producers. Your job is to ask questions, not to hate Mr. Khan. I mean, how many times do I have to say? I don't hate Mr. Khan, right? I'm a big Imran Khan fan when it comes to cricket and personality, mate. So I don't hate Mr. Khan. I'm asking the tough questions. It may appear like that, but look, I'm trying to have a balanced conversation. I'm surprised Brother Zafar didn't say he wants to get involved, because he loves to get involved in these conversations. But he did air his opinions earlier, and he did say that Mr. Khan is trying to do the best within his situation, within his circumstances, and it's a very, very tight rope that he is trying to balance. Right, are we gonna get Cicely Scarborough to join us tonight and to have this conversation? I look like we have got.
Hello.
Cicely. Fantastic, great.
I'm so sorry. I'll talk really fast. Quick switch. It was quick switch to another laptop. My work laptop let me down.
Fantastic. Well, fantastic. The work laptop let you down. Normally, it's the work laptop that actually rescues you, isn't it?
I know. This time,
down, right?
I'm so sorry about that.
But I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Is it Cicely?
Cicely, yes. Cicely Scarborough.
Right, Cicely. So let's get Luton vaccinated. I've been talking for the last couple of minutes. Let me go straight over to you. What's happening? What is the situation in Luton? How is the uptake of the vaccination? I know we need to keep encouraging people, which I'm trying to do, but just give us a situation of where we are and how well we're doing, Cicely.
So we've done well. What we know is that almost 110,000 people have had their first dose of vaccination and 74,000 for the second dose, but we need to do better. Right. And we're worried about some areas of Luton, some communities in Luton who are just not taking up on the vaccine for whatever reason, maybe because they have concerns about the vaccination, maybe because they're worried about having their vaccine. But I think it's really important to say that over the next couple of weeks, what you'll see is lots more places that you can get vaccinated. And I've got a list of those places. So we know
Let's give us the places where you can walk in and get vaccinated.
Yes, so we know this evening until 9 o'clock at Luton Central Mosque, you can walk in and get vaccinated. And then again, next Thursday and Friday, the 1st and 2nd of July, from 5 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the evening. That's walk in, and those are Pfizer jabs. So anybody over 18 can go along and be vaccinated. Redgrave Children and Young People's Centre in Redgrave Gardens, 8:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night. So opportunities to go before and after work. People are there for 11 hours a day, and that's Pfizer as well. So over 18s can go along and be vaccinated there, walk in. And then Hightown Community and Sports Centre. And Hightown is an area where we would like to see more people get vaccinated.
Hightown, right?
Hightown. So Hightown Community.
Shout out to Hightown. We need you vaccinated. Right?
We do.
From Hightown. We need you vaccinated. All right, go on. Any
Absolutely. So Hightown Community Sports and Arts Centre, and that's this Sunday, the 27th of June, from 10:30 in the morning. So you don't have to get up too early. 10:30 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. And next weekend as well, the 3rd and the 4th of July, again 10:30 till 4:30. So really important. People can go along. They just have to walk in. Anyone who's over 18, it's completely safe to have your vaccine, and it's the best protection that we've got in Luton against COVID, because goodness knows we all want to be out of this situation now, don't we? And the best protection you can have is to have your vaccination, and we're really encouraging residents in Luton to do that.
Fantastic. Great message. Very, very clear. Plenty of opportunity, plenty of centers there that you can go and get vaccinated. How is the take up, and how is the, I don't know if you got any feedback from the Luton Central Mosque, and you mentioned it again. So is that this weekend again, that in terms of a walk-in?
So Luton Central Mosque is from 5 o'clock till 9 o'clock, and that's on Thursday and Friday next week. And tonight, if people want to go along, they've still got about an hour to go along this evening to go and get their vaccine. The Central Mosque have been an absolutely fantastic partner for us. We could not have been made more welcome. They've looked after our wonderful NHS staff and vaccinators absolutely beautifully, and we're very, very grateful to them for being such brilliant partners in our community. Really great location for people too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the message is very clear. Centers there's plenty of centers that you can actually walk into, and what about the appointment based? Because I think that there's there's still this myth that I haven't received my invite or my text message or my email or my call yet, right? Because I've asked a couple of people, not necessarily from Luton, and they said, well, we haven't received the invitation yet. So
yes, absolutely.
Everywhere where you don't get an invitation now at all.
Absolutely. You're not required to wait for that text anymore. If you're over 18, you can be vaccinated.
Right. And so we need to get that message out. Don't wait for the text. Please get vaccinated. And that brings me to the very end of the show. Very quickly, Cicely, I'll give you another 20 seconds.
So everybody get out there this weekend and get vaccinated, please, Luton. If you're over 18 and you're a Luton resident, just go along to some of those venues I said and make sure you get your vaccination. It's the best protection we've got against COVID.
Cicely, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks.
You're welcome. Right, listeners, that brings us right to the end of the show. And it's been a jam-packed show. Thank you very much, everyone. And you heard that message very, very clear. Luton, we need you. Get vaccinated. Hightown, if you're from the Hightown area, please go and get vaccinated. Plenty of places to go, right? To walk in. Get vaccinated, right? Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Jazakallah khair, listeners. Jazakallah khair, producers, team, for putting a fantastic set of panelists together. Until next week, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.